Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Christenson. I'm the public sector practice leader with Sierra-Cedar. I'll be your host today for the third episode of Oracle Cloud 9. Oracle Cloud 9 is a series that we record interviews with our Oracle Cloud customers where we really draw in reflections and lessons learned from their experience implementing Oracle Cloud applications through the context of 9 questions that we'll be discussing today. It's my pleasure to be joined this morning by our distinguished guest, Lee Marxen. Lee is an application architect with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Lee's worked with the organization for 35 years, which is an incredible tenure with that organization, brought tremendous knowledge to the project as well as really guiding us through historical usage of their e-business suite application and guidance on how to best work through their culture. Lee, would you mind saying a few words about Ohio BWC just to give some context for the organization for the audience?
Sure, Brian. As Brian said, I'm Lee Marxen. I work in the IT department for BWC, and the Bureau is really just a large insurance company. We do exclusively workers' compensation, and Ohio is one of the few monopolistic states. So if you're an employer in Ohio, you have our workers' comp insurance. So while that may sound easy, sure, we don't have to go out and find employers to insure, but we do need to insure everyone. And our coverage is no fault. So there's a different set of complexities that being a monopoly brings. So there's a whole lot of systems that run the insurance side of the house. We brought ERP in back in 1996, the original e-business suite in 1996, and it handles all the cash processing that is not related to insurance. So anything to do with how you run the organization, whether it be utilities or this contract itself, that's all handled through the Oracle ERP suite. We also do our budgeting there, track our fixed assets, and handle our general ledger.
Great. Thanks for the background there, Lee. It's also my pleasure to introduce our teammate on the project, Theresa Harris with TMH Solutions. Theresa is the president and CEO of TMH Solutions, which is a leading provider of IT solutions within the state of Ohio. And Theresa and I have worked together for many, many years. Probably we go back 15, 20 years, have worked on numerous projects together, and it was a pleasure to work with you on this project. Theresa and I will both be conducting the interview. And Theresa, perhaps you could say a few words about TMH Solutions.
Of course, Brian. Good morning, Theresa Harris with TMH Solutions. We are a management information and technology consulting firm, mainly on enterprise systems. We also resell software for many large companies. It is a pleasure for us to be on the call today. We've been working with the Bureau of Workers' Compensation for many years, and we just really enjoyed working with Sierra-Cedar. As Brian said, we've known each other and have the trust and credibility between our companies to make sure that we deliver for our customers. And I think we did just that.
Thanks, Theresa. So to give some background about the project began in April, mid-April 2021 with an 8-month project schedule. The project was delivered 100% remotely, and the objective for the project was to replace the antiquated e-business suite application from Oracle with like-for-like functionality, adding in some additional features, also adding in budgeting, which we'll talk about through the course of this discussion. The project did go live 8 months after it began, on time and on budget in late December 2021. It was critical that it did go live in that time frame because Ohio BWC was operating on version 12.1.3, and that was facing D-support in that exact same time frame. So there was some criticality. Project was delivered on schedule, exactly according to what was laid out in the initial project plan, which is certainly remarkable given the fact that the team worked 100% remotely, given the looming travel restrictions that existed through the course of 2021. One of the things that I think was interesting was, as we got the project started, taking a look at the organization's stated vision, which really articulates Ohio BWC's guiding beacon for its operations. And that vision statement is that it looks to transform itself into an agile organization that's driven by customer success. There's numerous elements of this project that align with that. The first being that replacing eBusiness Suite, which was a traditional ERP application that was very forms driven with transactions, to a much more fluid application that's more intuitive, easier to use, with business analytics blended throughout it, provided the organization with that agility, really, that vision statement is focused on. In addition, having the analytics and the transactions in that fluid mechanism, along with the fact that it's deployed in a cloud model, enables the workforce to work anywhere, anytime, with any device, which also is critical in today's hybrid kind of work mode. And agility being their focus, I think, was really amplified and reinforced with the alignment of what was accomplished during the course of the project. So with that, wanted to provide background about the organizations that were involved, as well as background about the project. We appreciate your interest in this discussion. And once again, I want to thank Lee for participating in this, and we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. So Lee, the first question is, what objectives have been met with the implementation of Oracle Cloud ERP?
Well, our major objective was to get out of that every 3-year, 5-year cycle of having to upgrade from one version to the next. We felt with the cloud implementation and getting the quarterly releases, that would be much less disruptive to the business. And then there was the hardware upgrade cycle. It just seemed to be a lot of hassle for what's a fairly straightforward back office system. So that was met. And we're reasonably happy with it so far. All the releases have gone fine. But we've only been live for a few months, so we'll see how it goes.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Be cautiously optimistic.
Right. Well, and that's a common theme with our customers, that they expect to have applications rolled out in a software as a service model, and that's kind of today's world. Things have changed over the past 5 years to where that was bleeding edge before, and now it's kind of exactly what folks expect. Having on-premise software is a thing of the past. So appreciate that. So
another objective was to have the business side of the house be more self-reliant. The initial implementations were really heavily reliant on IT providing a lot of services and solving problems and loading data for them, and there was just a lot of effort. We're expecting that, particularly as we start hitting our stride in the cloud, that the IT involvement will drop off somewhat dramatically.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that.
So Lee, now for a fun question. If you had to choose a song that best describes your journey to the cloud, what would it be?
Well, I did spend a little bit of time thinking about what song I could use. I went with Talk to Me by Stevie Nicks, because the lyrics of Talk to Me by Drake were a little too rough. But at any rate, it was really that being the middleman between the integrator and the business side, and I certainly did not know all of IT's processes within Oracle. There were certainly times where I needed more information. I needed people to really explain their business process in a lot of detail. The worst mistake that I think we made was when somebody would assume that the integrator was going to just come in and tell us how we were going to run Oracle. That isn't really their job. Their job is for us to tell them what we want Oracle to do and then make that happen. Once we kind of got that understood, things went a little bit better.
So talk to me. Okay. So if you could go back in time and give yourself and the project team advice during the project kickoff, what would it be during the project kickoff meeting? What would it be?
What would it have been? Well, we didn't do probably enough. We didn't spend enough time on figuring out what our goals were going to be. How do we define success? The original request for proposal certainly listed out goals, but we didn't go into enough detail as to what success would be. So then, consequently, in the middle of the project, there's a little bit of wandering in the woods, trying to decide, well, what are we expecting, and what do we need Sierra-Cedar to do? There wasn't a lot of that, but that does make it uncomfortable when you're not really sure what exactly is going to be delivered. Uncomfortable for both parties. So once we got that under control, things certainly went better. But it would have been, we should have spent more time with that earlier in the project.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So Lee, the next question 5 is, what would you consider to be the coolest Oracle Cloud feature that you are using in the organization?
Well, for me personally, the coolest is certainly the quarterly updates. It just is slightly less worry about those big releases. But from the business side, kind of as we talked earlier, they've really taken a liking to the Excel integration. The reporting features are really nice. Before, when we were doing reports, or when IT was doing reports, they had to wait on us to get some resources together to go do whatever they wanted and fuss around. Boy, now they can just bang them up themselves, and that's been really nice.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that ties into the agility we were talking about earlier as well. So the next question is, what has been the reaction from the user community about the new system?
As typical, there's some fear because it looks a little bit different. But once they got into it, they realized it was pretty similar to the old system, and easier to use. And that, as I said, they like the Excel features, the export features, the reporting. We can just do a better job of tailoring what the cloud application does than we could with the on-prem. We could do it easier. It's not that we couldn't do it with the on-prem, but it's certainly easier to do a lot of this stuff.
So Lee, what are the biggest differences between Oracle Cloud applications and Oracle eBusiness Suite for BWC?
Oh, well, really, it's somewhat repetitive. That the Excel upload feature is nice. The reporting stuff is far superior. Mm-hmm. It is a little bit odd that there's a couple different reporting schemes, and you have to really learn them all. But they are all pretty easy to use, and once you get the hang of them. The biggest difference is, I guess, one other big difference that from the IT perspective, we were pretty used to going into the database and mucking around. It's a little hard to do that in the cloud. In fact, you really need to just say, you know what, we're not going to go in the database. It's there. The tables still exist. They're really hard to get to. And it's not designed for the end user community to be inside the database. where the on-prem version, it was, I won't say necessarily expected, but certainly was done often. So you have to really think through from the IT side. If you have a serious IT involvement in your Oracle Financials application, it's going to change.
So tell us, are there any humorous stories that you recall from the project? If so, tell us about one.
Oh boy, humorous is tough when you're talking accounting. The only one that I thought was kind of funny, and this is going to be a little bit of a knock on Oracle. They produce a out of the box 7-bucket report in their collections area. It just so happens that the 7-bucket report shows how old a receivable is, and it goes, the standard 30, 60, 90-day thing, and then all the way out to receivables that are older than 180 days, I think is the max. We were running that report, and things in that maximum bucket were disappearing off the report, and we just couldn't figure it out. Well, it turns out BWC's got this weird business process where we will bill a bondholder for a claim once the claimant has died. So it could be 30 years, 40 years before this person actually passes on, and then we say, here's all the claim costs, now you have to pay it. And I'm not entirely sure why we have this business process, but that's the way it works. And Oracle never thought that anybody would ever do something like that. So the report only goes out to 999 days, and anything beyond that just drops off. And well, that took us a long time to figure out, and a few calls back and forth with Oracle support. But as I said, wasn't really funny, but it was, I don't know, kind of funny in a way. It's like, oh, we have this weird business process. Nobody else, I guess, does that.
So now you have an 8th bucket that is 180 days to 60 years.
Yeah, I did actually create an 8th bucket report for them. Just to, here's everything that's beyond 999 days.
Right. Right. So now the final question, 9th and final question. Why was TMH Solutions and Sierra-Cedar chosen to be BWC's implementation partner on this project versus others that you evaluated?
Your proposal offered a good combination of experience in your staff members and similar background projects to what we were looking for, which was government implementation that leaned heavy on the financials. So that experience was gave us some confidence that you guys could get the job done. But one of the key things to me was your proposal talked about training. And it wasn't training at the end of the project. Everyone's proposal said, oh, in the last 2 weeks, we'll train you. And I don't know about you, but having somebody work on a project for 8 months and then here, we're going to jam it down your face in 2 weeks, that was just unacceptable. Your proposal, however, talked about training way at the beginning of the project, and that we would be doing training of key principles all the way through. And that made a lot of sense to me. That allowed our team to help your team. And that's really how all projects should go. You guys should be teaching us how the application works up front. And then when we're talking through how we're going to configure it, how processes are going to go, that makes my business team aware of how things are going to work, and they can participate in the discussion rather than just saying, well, we want something that does something like this. They can say, hey, we've seen in Oracle that it does these things. How can we leverage that to accomplish this goal. They could be better partners with Sierra-Cedar. So that was really for me a big selling point, that you were pushing involving our staff as much as possible, as early as possible.
So do you feel like they attained that level of self-sufficiency that kind of was on your mind as you were reviewing the proposal, and kind of what you envisioned at the very beginning? Do you feel like that self-sufficiency was attained through the course of the project?
For the most part. Some areas, of course, took to it better than others. It also depends on your personality. You have to be somebody who says, I need to know this. And the people at BWC who were insistent that they needed to understand how things worked, they certainly got the best support and service from Sierra-Cedar. Those that kind of took a back seat to things and said, well, I'm just going to let Sierra-Cedar tell me how it goes, they had a much harder time. So again, if you're going to go into one of these projects, you need to be upfront about what it is you want and how you want it to go, and relatively demanding about it. I want to see these activities. If you don't speak up, then the integrator won't even know how to help you.
Yeah.
So
no, that's great insight. And as we're wrapping up, want to thank you again, not only for your partnership on this project, but also, the generosity with your time and going through this discussion. I'm sure that folks that watch this are going to have a number of takeaways as they plan for their own project, and I really appreciate it. And Theresa, also appreciate the partnership that we've had on the project, delivering consulting services to Ohio BWC. So, any last words?
No, thanks. It was pretty fun.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, have a good day, and talk to you all soon.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.